All right. Whoa. Hello, everyone. It's me, megradael, and welcome to my channel if you haven't been here before. Anyway, I've got my little coffee, and hopefully you have your coffee or your drink of choice. I do love a good tea. I'm gonna bust out my tea set. Anyway, I've got the new setup going. There is currently way too much light on me, so I'm a little blind. Not sure how to fix that, but I want to make it cozy. But I'm also in a corner, and it's dark outside. So if any of you have suggestions, please let me know. But I am here because I want to talk about The Martian. And why am I talking about The Martian when the Project Hail Mary came out? Because Project Hail Mary came out, and it reminded me of how much I liked The Martian when I watched it in like 2015 or whatever it was. So I wanted to talk about The Martian because I am reading it. And I'm almost done with it, and I probably should have waited to finish it, but I just couldn't help myself because I've been watching so many interviews with Andy Weir talking about the work that went into the Project Hail Mary, and I just wanted to share some interesting things about The Martian that you probably didn't know, unless you really love The Martian and you still randomly clicked on this video, in which case, please just kick back and enjoy yourself, and go, oh, I already knew that, every single time, and then, count it up, and if it's over 10 by the end of the video, you win. Anyway, so welcome. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already, because that's insane if you're not. I'm judging you over here. I'm not even a judgy person. I'm an INFP, so that's embarrassing. Anyway, I'm just kidding. I'm not. Anyway, so Andy Weir was a computer software engineer, software developer, in the tech industry. I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about the author until I was looking up some stuff. So yeah, he basically wrote The Martian as like a series of blog posts, which definitely made me appreciate the writing style more, because I went into it without knowing that, and I was reading it and I was like, whoa, why does it almost read like juvenile? Like something I would write, where the main character is like cursing every 5 seconds, and he's supposed to be like a really mature like botanist and up in space and very intelligent. Not saying you can't curse and be intelligent, but I'm saying like the writing style is like how I would write right now, which I would say is juvenile. But the science aspect really brings out a lot of the qualities, but it's basically a diary entry style writing with the main character Mark Watney. If you haven't seen The Martian, there will be spoilers in this, I'm sorry, but it's been a while. It's been like 10 years. So yeah, he wrote this like 2009 to 2011 or 12, and then it got picked up by Crown Publishing in like 2014. It made into a movie 2015. It was very popular when it came out. So yeah, it was really cool. So Mark Watney gets stranded in space by himself because he is on Mars with a group, and a big storm kicks up, and they've only been there for like 2 weeks. And yeah, a big storm kicks up. He gets impaled. They think he's dead because of his like reading on his suit, and they head back home, and he wakes up and he's like, oh my gosh, my oxygen level is low. What's going on? And patches himself up, and then he realizes he's stranded on Mars. Nobody knows he's still alive. He has no way to connect with NASA or anyone. And wow, The Martian. Yeah, and so like I said, my first impression of the book was that I thought it was a little juvenile, and it just wasn't what I expected, because it's just this like grand movie, and the book is reading like this. But once I learned that he had written it as a series of blog posts, I was like, oh, this is fun. Because like, I'm like, oh, why did he just like state in the first chapter that he did so and so, and then in the next chapter he like says it again? Like, that's a little redundant. But it's because if you're reading it like week to week, like almost like a fan fiction update, then yeah, it's like, oh, I forgot what happened, please tell me just a little bit, that way I'm back on track. Oh yeah, I remember that. And yeah, it's really interesting. The science is very, very well thought out, like as Andy said in an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson. He wrote it as if he was like over his shoulder, like doing the science calculations or whatever. And I just really appreciated that as somebody who's not scientific. I'm reading all of this stuff like, oh, I needed to make a water reclamation system. So I took the oxygen and the hydrogen and blah, blah, blah. And, I was going to add the pressure to do this. And I was just like, I don't know. I trust you. You're saying lots of things and I trust you. And I know like scientific like experts are going to appreciate it more than me. It's kind of how like I was looking at the linguistics and Project Hail Mary as a linguistics nerd. But yeah, I thought that really like he writes it in a way that isn't boring. Paired with the like, oh my god, F word Mark Watney reactions, it like balances out really well. So I was like, okay, cool, I'm kind of digging this. And I thought it was interesting. I wanted to rewatch the movie after I finished the book, but I couldn't help myself, so I watched the movie. Like I said, I'm like near the end of the book, and it was very true to the book. I mean, to a certain extent, because they were using like the same lines, and I'm really, really impressed with how well these translate to film. And I will say, like, most of that will probably go to the screenwriter, who actually, the screenwriter for The Martian did the screenwriting for Project Hail Mary. I learned after, watching all these interviews with Andy Weir and his editor and everything. Yeah, like, most of the credit, probably goes to the writer and then to the screenwriter. But I was really impressed because while I was reading it, it kind of sounded like most of these characters had the same tone of voice. And I mean, it really, as a movie, fits better in my mind because, it's kind of weird to think about like all these characters in NASA being like, yeah, we're going to work overtime. Let's just, hang back and relax and like curse when we wanna and, just like stay up all night making these calculations and like hanging out and ordering pizza. Oh my god. Like it seemed so like unrealistic to me. But then when I'm watching the movie, I was like, oh, okay, this is like, it's a movie, it's fiction, and not everything has to be super realistic. But it, with the characters, it kind of fit more like, oh yeah, that character has a voice. I can see this because the actors are portraying it. It's not just words on a screen. You get to see some personality and their delivery and everything. Okay, blah, 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 blah. There's just a few points that I wanted to point out. One was that there was a scene that wasn't in the movie that had to do with, that was basically when the airlock, if you didn't know, he's trying to survive. He, first off, needs a lot of food because he's going to starve by the time they get everyone back over. So he makes these potatoes and everything. But then the airlock, like the tarp, he's using one of the airlocks out of like 3. So the tarp that was made, it wasn't really made for such long use, especially only one airlock being used continuously. So the airlock section gets like blasted away from the hab, which is the main center of the space that he's living in that has like oxygen. He can live in there without his suit on. So he is in the airlock with his suit when he gets blown away in the book. And he has to launch himself up against the wall of the airlock, which if you didn't know, the airlock is like this anyway, this huge cylindrical object, and he's like slamming his back against it, trying to roll it back towards the hab because his suit is broken. And one of the funny things about this is that he mentions duct tape several times about how like NASA just has just duct tape. It's not no special grade duct tape, it's just duct tape. And he's talking about like how duct tape should be worshipped. It's really funny. And yeah, he has to like duct tape his helmet, and so he knows that when he gets in the hab, he's gonna have to grab a new suit because his suit has been punctured, and the hab has no oxygen in it because it's, Mars air has, blown there's no safe spot for him to be, so he needs to get into the suit to figure out how to patch up the hab and repressurize it and everything. So I thought that was very interesting because there's a lot of stressors along the way that Mark Watney is facing. He's facing, his whatever broke. And then he realizes, the airlock has launched him out and he has to get back. And then he has to figure out it's a lot of problem solving, and it's like really dramatic, and it's really cool because you get to see his thought processes and his failures and be like, oh shoot, like he almost whatever. And so that's one part that was in the book that wasn't in the movie, that like it didn't really necessarily need to be in there. I just thought it was interesting when the airlock blew out, he just casually reaches over to get a new suit from like one of the other astronauts that didn't that wasn't left stranded there. He just took one of their suits. But I was like, oh man, that's funny, because I just read that part in the book and he totally was having like such a hard time trying to get back into the hab because he was just launching himself and his back was aching, and I was just like, oh, poor Mark Watney. Man, to be him. And there's also a part where he fixes that up. He decides to go out and find this probe that had been launched and had lost contact with NASA like years and years ago, because it would help him connect with NASA if NASA somehow saw him with the satellite images and knew that he was alive. So he goes out to go get this probe, and the NASA people go to the other probe to link them up, and then they have Watney put in some code into one of the rovers to make it to where they can communicate, update the code, and they can talk to each other. So they're talking to each other basically through text and everything. And so NASA's really trying to help guide him to get him back home. So they're going to send him to another site on Mars, which is really far away. That way they can have him hopefully be there for when they come to pick him up and rescue him. So he's planning for this really long trip. And so he's going to have to like outfit these rovers, like together, like re-drill them, that way he can hold enough food. He can have a water reclamation system because there's no water on Mars, according to this novel. I'll come back to that. And a few other things. So he accidentally has no contact with NASA, because what happens is he sets down a drill and there's some static that basically like fries the connection, and he doesn't understand that until like 24 hours later, because he's like, hey, like I sent you a message like 30 minutes ago, and then it was like, oh, the last message was received 24 hours ago. He's like, crap, I'm by myself now, I'm just gonna have to figure stuff out. And I think it's really interesting, the different modes of communication that he comes up with, because at first he was trying to get them to have they had like a camera on the probe or whatever. He was putting up signs like, do you read me? Point towards the yes or point towards the no. And they're like, yes. And then he's like, oh man, I can't make an alphabet, but I have to have them communicate with me in really long stretches of words. This is before they got the rover to work. And so they did like, I don't know, hexadecimal system or something. So I thought it was really interesting, like all the methods of communication that they were figuring out at NASA. But anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. Basically, I liked the movie. I am liking the book. Sure, it doesn't have the writing style that I like want to write. Like Anne Rice is basically my, oh my god, I wish I could write like that writing style. And Jane Austen, like precision, and Michael Moorcock. Ugh. All right, back on topic. But I mean, oh my god, it was just such a good story. Like it's so like expressive, and like the science is like intriguing, because I'm not like usually like honed in on sci-fi science. I'm usually more of like the speculative fiction type. Oh, goodness, I'm loving it. So yeah, unfortunately fortunately, I'm on a sci-fi kick right now. So after I finish The Martian, I'm probably going to be reading Rendezvous with Rama, which I hadn't really heard of, but my friend actually loved it. And then he also just finished Ender's Game, which of course I had gotten at my at my Scholastic book fair when I was like in middle school. And then I read a few pages and I just really wasn't feeling it, so I was like and now I'm like, oh, I would love it. And one thing that he said is he would really like to see Ender in, I don't know if he said like in a standoff with Paul Atreides or something like that. And I was like, ooh, this is interesting. So man, yeah, I'm really gonna be on a sci-fi kick because I'm gonna read some more Dune stuff. I've got Ender's Game, Rendezvous with Rama. Like I just said, I read The Martian. And speaking of Dune, since Dune Part 3 is coming out or whatever, I actually was just editing my cosplay a little bit, which if you didn't know, I made a still suit like almost 4 years ago. But I didn't have a Chris knife, so I'm making a Chris knife, and I was altering a little bit to my suit because, I mean, why can't you just add a little bit to your suit? But one of the things I thought was interesting about The Martian was that at the time of the writing, they totally thought that Mars had no water because, they couldn't really find any proof of water. But then once they got some samples, they found out that, actually the soil in Mars does contain water. So Mark Watney actually didn't need to go to so much trouble that he went. He went to so much trouble in this novel, okay, to make a water reclaimer. That way he wouldn't die of thirst. And actually, if you had just gotten some soil and like cooked it for a while, like heated it up or something, it would actually make so much water. So it's like really funny that like Andy, the author, went through so much pain to do all of the math and like figure out how Mark would make a water reclaimer just for it to, not actually need to be happening. Which is the funny thing about The Martian. This is the last point I'm going to say. Is I just kept forgetting that we haven't been to Mars. And how would you forget that? Like hello? But I will say, I watched it like 10 years ago. More than 10 years ago, like 12 years ago, as an impressionable teen. And of course I knew we hadn't been to Mars, but like reading the book, it's like, oh yeah. Yep. And it's like, isn't that wild? We haven't been to Mars? I think I've honestly just been reading too much sci-fi related material and watching a lot of sci-fi related things. Yeah. Anyway, so that's it. That's me talking about The Martian. And thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I really do. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm starting to blush. Anyway, please subscribe to me. I've never asked before this video to subscribe. At least I'm pretty sure. Sorry, I keep hitting the mic. But yeah, why don't I do that? Because otherwise I'm just talking out in space. And I like talking to people. So I hope you like this video. There will be more videos. And I'll see you soon. Yeah. Right.